What's going on, guys? Still September 8th, 2015, and that thing here is kicking some butt because I'm using excessive amount of power. 20 amps. Not excessive, but enough to make that thing fans run constantly. This isn't a how-to video. It's just me changing an engine, and my history of working on stuff like this. Years back, I drive around the car lots, and I would find 4 or 5 year old vehicles that had blown engines in them and change them out. I'd drive them for a while, sell them, give them away to a girlfriend, whatever. And it would have been nice to actually get this one with, a not running condition, and would have saved a ton of money. But there's things changed since I've changed them. Now there's Bellhousing bolts all the way around. See if this thing lighting can adjust. And there's Bellhousing bolts all the way around. I did measure the flywheel bolts on here, and it's not like a balanced system, so whenever I go to put it back together, it doesn't matter where the torque converter is on it. I can just stick the bolts in. Some things have changed, like last time I pulled an engine and changed, the computer wasn't out here, it was inside the car, and which isn't a big deal or anything. I liked it better. I think it was better when the computer was inside the car, so it wasn't as much moisture and stuff we got on it. I think it was a better idea in the car. I think that they just started putting it out here to eliminate having to run so much wiring harness through the dash or something. Just guessing. But I had thought about putting this thing up on ramps and doing all the work underneath on ramps, and then back it back off of it. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and just use jacks and stuff, jack it up and crawl underneath. All the other engines I've ever done in the past, I did outside on the ground, so it'll be kind of nice being in here on the floor. But alright, we'll see what we get to next. Alright, we got the hood off, and I did it without damaging anything. How I got it off? We'll start off with the the hood prop. There's a little clip. You just pull the little clip out, and it makes it so that you can pull this off. And even after I pulled it off, you could just slide this back on the ball, and it would still hold the hood up. And I backed off the nuts to where there was only like one thread on each one, and then I stuck this on the core support and just laid the hood on it, and then I was able to reach underneath like this and take those nuts off the rest of the way, and then all I had to do was just lift the hood off straight up, and now it's sitting over there on the couch. So to get the battery out of this vehicle, you have to remove, there's little clips on the end of this computer. On one end, you just pull them out and lift up, and then you can move the computer aside, and there's a tray that goes in here. It has a bolt here, and it has a bolt here, but you have to remove one of these plastic covers. It's held in with them little push-in clips, and then you can get the bolt right here out. And then we'll unhook the battery, and then I can start unhooking terminals. I already marked these 1, 2, 3, but they're probably keyed so they can only go back on the one that goes on, but just in case, I numbered them. And also, when you're removing stuff, you remove the battery tray, you move the air cleaner, I always keep the hardware that belongs to it with it, so it makes it so when you're putting it back together, you're not guessing what hardware goes where, and You know, it keeps you from finding a more efficient way to put it back together, like, you know, having a handful of extra bolts. So I got to where you can see the engine now, and I've gotten to figuring out that somebody else has been in here before, because a lot of the safety clips is missing. There's like little clips on each connector that you pop out, and then all you gotta do is just push down on them and they unsnap, and all the safety clips is missing. So this is kind of leading to me like somebody's been in here and they didn't know what they was doing either, because or either they just being shoddy, like popping these clips completely out and then just throwing them. But they're very easy to remove, and that what tells me somebody didn't know what they was doing. This particular engine, you know, outside of the ring problem that it's known for, is also known for these connections right here is for a variable valve timing, and like the Cavalier I'm working on, it does not have, you know, any of this kind of stuff. Well, there's a tensioner in here that this particular model of this engine is known to tear up this tensioner and actually run clear through the metal plate and everything, and you'd have like flapping, you know, chain flapping and being noisy in there. So this thing's been in, you know, somebody's been in here before, and you can tell that they removed the whole cover, because any connector that has to do with removing this cover is missing the clip. And then in the past, probably still applies, I was talking about the computer hookups being keyed, and they were, and I popped them off, they're all different. It's the same way all over the vehicle. You can just pull these plugs off and just drop them, because they're all keyed. Like, you maybe find this connector clear on the other side of the vehicle, but it's not going to reach to be able to be plugged into the wrong place, you know. So I've never seen, you know, pretty much when you lay them back down, they're going to only plug into where they can, you know, be plugged in. And then I'm not too worried about unplugging these coils, because they are taped off at the harness right here, you know, in the placement that they would need to be. So I'm not really concerned about marking any of those. But it really concerns me, you know, with the new engine, that it's out of the same make and model, you know, year. And I'm going to end up having these problems later with it, because, you know, everything that you know, these are known for, this one's already been through. So, I mean, I'm going to keep this engine around for parts, you know, just in case, you know, something goes wrong with a new one. You know, maybe the parts that's in this one, like timing components parts, you know, will be usable later. But well, there's another little thing down in here that I did a little test on, but here's the connector for it, and there's the other end of it. There is a vacuum pump down in here, and when I bought the vehicle, it's like noisy and crappy, and it looks like somebody's had it apart and put some kind of silicone on it. But let's see if you can see it better this way. Yep, you can see it better this way. And all it does, it's like a vacuum assist for the vacuum for the power brakes. Pretty much, it just has a vacuum line that runs off of it, tees into the one that goes into the intake manifold, and then runs off to the master cylinder. And like 2 months ago, I unplugged it. Just unplugged it, and to see if it had any effect on the brakes, even like pushing the brakes and then hurry up and pushing them again, and I'm not noticing any effects by it. So I unplugged it, and you know, then I was waiting for it to see if I had an engine light or anything like that come on, and it doesn't. It has no effects whatsoever. And I don't know, maybe the manufacturer thought that the engine wasn't producing enough vacuum, but so they put this on here. But I'm ripping it out. I'll just fix the vacuum line up so that it doesn't have a T in it anymore. And then I'll probably just cut this guy off up in here somewhere and tape it all up real nice and just pretend that it was never there. But yeah, you can remove this noisy vacuum pump when it goes bad. So here's that vacuum pump. You can see that they silicone the living crap out of it. Probably trying to get rid of a vacuum leak when all they had to do is just freaking unhook the thing altogether, but you gotta wonder who their mechanic was. Alright, so I thought I'd show you guys, the vacuum line and stuff that goes to that pump, just to show you that I can get the flashlight in here halfway decent. All it is for the power brakes, and like I said, I've been driving this car for 2 months with that pump unhooked. But here's the vacuum line hooked to the pump, and then it goes across, and then it has a T right here. One end hooks to the engine, the intake manifold. There's a one-way valve, and then your T, and then it just runs straight over to the master cylinder. So pretty much my comment on what kind of mechanic was this guy. Well, all the safety clips on the the connectors and the siliconed up pump, I can't see where it did anything, honestly. I don't know why GM put it on there. Maybe they was forced to, for whatever reason. But just like I said, if it goes bad on yours, you can take it out. And I can tell you, there's no engine lights. This does not hook to any kind of emission controls. If there was a vacuum leak on that pump that would cause, that you would have a vacuum leak, you would get engine codes, because then you have a vacuum leak. But pretty much what I'm going to do is pull this one-way valve out and use it for a fitting to hook to this part of the line that runs over to the master cylinder. And then I'm going to take excess length of hose and go from the intake manifold to the one-way valve, so that way it's completely removed. I'll put clamps on and everything, and it'll just look like it was originally that way. I don't see any safety aspects with it. The power brakes work beautiful without it. So, I mean, you got to take that in consideration, that when removing equipment like that, it's probably why the original, the person working on it didn't take it out. That there is liabilities possible if there's an accident. But pretty much whenever I take something like this out, I'll explain to the person the risks involved, and most of the time they're more apt to be aware of the risks involved than pay the massive amount of money to replace something like that. But and I don't know what it is with me and drain plugs on the radiator, but anyway, so I got to put a tube on it so it directs it down into the pan. But I'm working on a Cavalier as well, and I fought the same way with this one for like 45 minutes to get that stupid plug loose and turned out enough to start draining. But it usually just it's got to fight you to the point to where then you end up just pulling the whole thing out, or blasts out and then makes a mess all over your garage floor. I managed to get this one so it's going in the pan, but it's either that or they have they don't have a place you can put a hose on it, and then it's directly above the core support, so when it comes out it runs all down the core support and then all over the place. This one here is working out after I fought turning that thing. Usually it's as you're turning it, it turns like a quarter of a turn, but it comes out like 3/8 or like 10 millimeter or so, as you're turning it. So it just, I don't know, they just like sticky or jammed in a way. Alright, got 3/4 of a gallon of antifreeze out of this. In the Cavalier I got about a gallon. It's just kind of strange how very little you actually get out of this. I guess it's possible when I start pulling the hoses and stuff off, there'll be several gallons dumping out on the ground. But I got that vacuum line fixed up for the brakes. And let me see here, all I gotta do is hook this to the new engine. Got the one-way valve in, and just gonna make sure when you put this one-way valve in that the engine can suck the air out of the master cylinder. So you gotta make sure you don't put it in there the wrong way. But I think I'm gonna wrap up part 2 here, just because the video is probably getting kind of long. But catch you guys later.